shall praise thy name, it shall praise thy name in earth holy, merciful and mighty, God over all, and blessed eternally.
Beautiful name for a girl. Truth. For many of us, truth is our lived reality. We're born, we grow, we learn to walk, we form relationships with the people around us, we go to school, we graduate, we work, maybe we get married, maybe we have children, maybe we grow old, we stop working, and eventually death claims us, and that's our truth, that we live. For Aletheia, truth took a very different turn from the day she was born. Born prematurely, born with complications. She was inflicted with a cerebral palsy. It severely impaired her motor function. Intellectually, mentally, she was quite bright. Emotionally, she experienced joy and sadness, as all of us do, as you and I do. But her condition deprived her of things that we take for granted, basic things that we would consider important in life, like walking and talking. Many other aspects of living were made difficult as a result of this. It was an affliction that felt like an injustice. It colored many conversations with her, and unfortunately, more often about her. And yet, in her life, Aletheia found joy, frequent joy. She knew how to find joy in her circumstances, and she wanted to do what she could to share that joy with others. Her parents speak about her deeply felt sense of fairness and justice, the desire for things to be for others to be included. Aletheia knew what it felt like to not be included. I think that she knew what it felt like in ways that are deeper and more profound than any of us have experienced, than any of us could probably comprehend. If I felt that way, I might respond with bitterness, but not Aletheia. Aletheia, her response was compassion, the desire to love others, the desire to include others and to be included with others. She found joy, many joys in life, things that she loved. She loved books. She loved being read to. The Boxcar Children, the Minecraft books. My family introduced her to a book called Don't Trust Fish. She loved to learn. And she loved it when people took the time to sit down and explain things to her. Mary once had me explain the ablative case to her. And she might be the only person I have ever met who even seemed interested in hearing me explain the ablative case. She loved to go to school. She was beloved by her classmates. She loved stuffed animals and squishmallows, many of which have been given to her on this journey to come. She especially loved her stuffed axolotl, Larry, whom she was never without. She loved the idea of going to space, of being an astronaut. Think about it, being in zero gravity, free floating, how that would affect, and so many of the things that she might be unencumbered by in this world's gravity pulling her down, she wouldn't have had to experience that. She had a sense of humor. You could tell, I could tell, because I could see the chuckle in her eyes and the crack of her smile when a joke was made at my expense. She had a sense of humor. She had an opinion about which Care Bear I was. I cannot tell you the names of many Care Bears, but I idea of which one I was. Most importantly of all, she loved the Lord Jesus, friend to all, protector of children, healer of the sick. She was part of our church family here. She had a favorite song. We just sang it, Holy, Holy, Holy. She had a favorite Bible verse, Philippians 4, verse 13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And for somebody who went through life without having a lot of her own strength, that verse was important because it is Christ who gives us strength. She had a more profound realization of that truth than I think some of us often realize. She loved it when other children took notice of her and cared about her. She loved camp. Accommodations were made, and she had the opportunity to attend the Flaming Pine Youth Camp on 2 different occasions. I've seen some of those happiest ones she has are when she's there. She loved going to the lake. She loved when others would take her to the lake and put her feet in the water. She won the biggest smile award one year. My daughter Deborah befriended her, loved to spend time with her, regaling her with all kinds of fantastic stories of her own invention, stories of Mr. Tissue Box. Deborah was talking to me about one of her favorite memories, the time she spent with Aletheia, and the time the two of them got to go on a boat ride on Mirror Lake together, and how they were doing donuts in the lake. She loved being around her church family. Her health challenges could make it especially difficult for her to go to things, to events, but she desired to go to them as often as she could, and she cherished the time that she had with friends. We loved the smiles that she gave us when she got to do things with us. We were heartbroken at the tears of sadness when she could not. And that's the part of this that, knowing Aletheia, that fills me with the deepest hurt, is the knowledge she had so much love in her heart to give and to share, and so little time in the here and now to share it with us. She cared deeply about those relational connections that God made for us. She craved things that I think we often take for granted. Time with others, presence with others, conversation with others, because there simply wasn't enough. The truth is that there isn't enough for any of us, but I think she was keenly aware of that more than anyone else. Aletheia was robbed in this life of many things we take for granted, but now we have been robbed of her. And Aletheia, well, now she has not been robbed at all. Because now her faith is made sight. Because now her craving is satisfied. Because now her longing is fulfilled. Because now what she sees and knows is more blessed than any of us have yet seen and known. Because she is no longer imprisoned with bodily affliction. What is truth, we ask? Aletheia now knows the answer to that, and knows it more fully than we have yet to learn. The truth of her life here gives way to a greater truth, one in which running and leaping and cartwheels are possible, one in which she puts her voice to the songs that she has loved so dearly in this life, one in which she can walk and talk with Jesus, from whom she will now learn so many more things she longed to know. The words of Isaiah in Isaiah 35 say this, that the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped, and the lame shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy, for waters shall break forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. That's truth. That's truth for Aletheia, and hopefully for all of us. It was the truth that she was taught by her family. It was the truth that she believed. It is the truth that I long for. It is the truth that is found in the arms of a God who loves reversal. It is the truth that Jesus is the one who makes the lame walk and makes the mute to speak, and who fills the hungry with satisfaction, and who raises the dead to life. I believe in that God of reversal, a God who fills up the lowly and who breaks down the powerful. I cannot see the future. I do not know what the final state will look like. But I have long suspected that in the resurrection of the dead, Aletheia may yet be the most able-bodied and articulate of us all. And in truth, I hope I speak for everyone here when I say this, that I cannot wait to see what she will do.
I'm going to introduce you to the limitless Aletheia. The room Mary woke up in, this is all written by her mother Mary. Limitless Aletheia. The room I woke up in was dark, but the hallway beyond the door was a glaring white. Busy in lab coats hurried by. No one paid any attention to me. Where was I? Eventually, someone stepped into the shadows of my room. "Good, you're awake," he said in a low voice. "What's your name?" "Mary." "How old are you?" 32. The rest of his questions were so obvious. They left me wondering if I was on an alien spaceship being pumped for information they'd use to take over the world. Why else would he want to know what year it was, who was the president, etc.? But no, I was actually at Akron City Hospital after a stroke. He said I'd had during my 30th week of pregnancy. I didn't remember any of it, but he said I'd had HELLP syndrome, and they'd had to do an emergency C-section. I was released, more or less, back to normal after 3 weeks. But my precious 2-pound, 11-ounce daughter hadn't fared so well. The doctor said she had a grade 4 intraventricular hemorrhage, a brain bleed that would probably keep her from walking. But it did more than that. It kept her from talking, from moving her arms and her hands intentionally, and from doing most anything one would expect from a child. Our beautiful Aletheia, Joy, had cerebral palsy. She lived up to her name, though, and brought everyone around her joy. Her smile was contagious, and I decided her many limitations. I decided to be thankful for the blessings in our life, despite her many limitations, all the extra care she required, the many specialists we regularly saw, etc. When her neurologist heard me speaking French to her, he discouraged exposure to more than one language. "We don't even know if she'll master English," he said. That was disappointing for me, having grown up in Europe and speaking multiple languages. But as in the face of all the other disappointments, I just hugged her, communicating unspeakably great love, and was thankful she understood. Aletheia couldn't crawl around touching, examining, and exploring her world like the other kids. So language acquisition didn't come for her as it did for most children. But the blessing of a mother's love would still birth more understanding than either of us could comprehend. Through the untold hours of mommy-daughter time, we began breaking through the barriers to her understanding without even realizing it. She loves songs, so I sing a lot. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. And to make her smile even more, I touch each body part as I sing. eyes and ears and mouth and nose. Sometimes feeling goofy, I'd say things like, "Is that your head?" tickling her knees. "No, silly mommy, that's not your head, that's your knee," I'd answer myself. And before I knew it, her little brain picked up on the difference between both questions and answers and things that are and are not. However, no matter how hard I tried, yes and no remained a mystery to her, until that is, her brain was ready for it. One spring day, just after her 4th birthday, she was sitting sideways across my lap, leaning back against my arm, which rested on the left arm of our cozy brown couch. It was our favorite place to spend time together. Looking out the window to my right, I couldn't help but be amazed at what I saw. Wow! Isn't this a beautiful day? The sun looks pretty, shining through the trees, doesn't it? Don't you just love how green the leaves have gotten in the past couple of weeks? The trees sure look a lot better now, huh? I mused. And isn't the sky such a gorgeous blue? Just look at those clouds. Don't they look just like feathers floating up there? Looks like spring really is here now, huh? I wasn't expecting an answer, of course. I just happened to string together a bunch of questions. But as I was talking, I noticed she was tapping me with her nose after each question. And as I finished another question, again, she pressed her nose to my left cheek. "Are you doing that on purpose?" Yes, I felt her nose tell me on my cheek. I couldn't believe it. "Aletheia, are those your toes?" I touched her ears, wondering if she had also figured out no. She touched me with her forehead. She had just figured out an important part of communication, but I was left speechless, and that was only the beginning. After almost 4 weeks of yes and no, I was blessed with a thought, adapting Morse code to her touches so she could answer open-ended questions. "What did you hear?" I might ask. C for cat or B for bird, she could say. I tried 3 times over the past year to teach her the alphabet, but she hadn't understood. But now she was more than ready. I sang the alphabet song, which she knew, and flipped through big red letters. Later I showed them to her, again saying consonant and short and long vowel sounds. I looked up Morse code online and tapped out each letter on her nose and forehead. She mastered the Morse code alphabet in 3 sittings. "What's the first letter in cat?" I then asked, hopefully. "CAT," came the response. Wow. That's right. What about grape? GRAPE. She even spelled congregation almost right. CONGREGASHUN. A mistake she only made once before being told TION, chun, is spelled strangely. From words, she progressed to sentences and then to conversation. Now Aletheia tells me whatever she wants. Her little brain broke through the communication barrier in its own way. My Aletheia joy is limitless.
This is Larry. Many of you know him, some of you don't. she was always with Larry, or I should say Larry was always with her. All right. So I had to have Larry up here with me because he's always with Aletheia, so why not have him with us? I'm also wearing my shirt, I axolotl questions, which is exactly what Aletheia did all the time. Yes. So I need to start with some thank yous. I can't thank you guys enough for all the love and the support that has been showered upon us these last several days. Even before our precious Aletheia passed away, I know that will continue to come, and we are so incredibly grateful. You all know we need that, but the voices of encouragement mean more than you can possibly know. You guys, we cried for so long and with so much intensity that it hurt physically. We both gave ourselves headaches that lasted up to for at least 24 hours. The nurses and staff at the hospital were so great. They did their very best to do anything and everything for us, knowing full well that they would seem everything they did would seem incredibly insufficient. I can't tell you the number of times they offered us coffee, water, snacks, anything they could. While we are grieving, we know that you are all grieving with us, and we are trying to offer our support too. You kind of get a sense already that Aletheia was very mature, and she really, really was. My conversations about Aletheia lately have reminded me of just how intellectually mature our Aletheia Joy was. She had already wrestled with and resolved the difficult life questions that most adults still struggle with. Why do bad things happen to good people? Why is there suffering in the world? Why did I do something wrong? And as Mary taught Aletheia, she is the zero in this equation, which meant she knew that she didn't do anything wrong. She's a zero in the equation. She knows that we live in an imperfect world, and she knows of the perfect one. And I am so glad that she will no longer have the pain, the physical struggles, the seizures, any of the earthly limitations that made her life so difficult. There's a worship song that uses the phrase, the lifter of my head. There's actually a number of them that use that phrase, which comes from Psalm 3:3. But you, O Lord, are a shield around me, my glory, and the one who lifts up my head. Now, it's a great encouragement just to think of that verse, but Aletheia and I would sometimes have fun with that passage or have fun with that phrase and take it literally, because I would often need to lift her head up when she couldn't. Now more than ever, it is the Lord God who is the lifter of her head. There were so many things that I would have loved to do for her that I just didn't get to do. We thought we had so much more time. One of the most prominent things I thought I would get to do with her has been on my mind a lot lately, taking her skiing. I was planning to get trained to have her strapped to my chest so I could take her down the hills. I am certain that she would have loved downhill skiing and would have giggled all the way down the hill each time. Wouldn't that be an adventure? I was going to teach Aletheia so much more about computers, specifically about Linux and servers. I've always been impressed with Aletheia's drive to learn. She wanted to learn anything and everything and from anyone who would teach her. I believe this comes from her unique perspective of being stuck in her wheelchair or lying in bed with very limited communication options. This gave her a lot of time to think and analyze. She was one of the world's best thinkers. I suppose I will continue to learn, as that drive to learn is what I have learned from her. I can't wait to see how I can take that learning and advance my career. That's something I can do because of her help. I'm sure that I have many more things left undone, but I am not bothered by this, because what parent wouldn't have so many hopes and dreams for their children? One of the things I did get to do with her is take her to Split Rock Lighthouse. It was a day that the Minnesota Historical Society reserved as a free admission day, and so we had it on the calendar and made sure to go. I wasn't sure how wheelchair accessible it would be, but hey, if we were going to get in for free, why not go? And worst case scenario, we hopped in the van and had an adventure. She can find the joy in anything, and I'm quite convinced that anytime we went anywhere, it was an adventure. To my surprise, despite the fact that the accessibility system was not working, one of the workers there from the Historical Society offered to help me lift Aletheia and her wheelchair up the huge flight of stairs that led to the level where we could get access to the lighthouse building. It must have been 40 stairs or more. After we got up there, I picked Aletheia up out of her wheelchair and carried her up the winding staircase to the top of the lighthouse, where the lights and the mirrors were. I was determined to give her that experience because I felt this was perhaps one of the only things I could do to give her an experience other kids would have had. To our surprise, when it came time to go, we were entreated with a complimentary membership to the Historical Society, which gave us discounts in the gift shop as well as discounts to other Minnesota historical sites. Near the end, when it became apparent that Aletheia's time was running out, we were presented with two options for her. Some of you have already been wondering, what was the struggle? What were we thinking, or what went into her final moments? The first option was to continue fighting as hard as possible to keep her alive, no matter how much pain and trauma that would give her. The second option was to allow her to pass away with as much comfort and support as possible. We, of course, made the tough decision to give her a DNR, do not resuscitate, which was the compassionate option since it allowed us to focus on comfort medications and just give her time with family and friends. We've actually already talked about this section here, talking about Aletheia and joy and the meaning of her names, that it means truth. And of course, how we both had that same name. When we finally found out that Mary was pregnant and that it was a girl, there was only one name on both of our minds, and it had to be Aletheia. Mary really wanted Joy as a second first name, and I loved it too. As time passed, we realized just how much of a God moment it was to name her Aletheia Joy, because she lives the truth of this world with its wisdom, but also its pain. And joy, because she truly considered it all joy in life. Even if she wasn't always happy, she knew how to be joyous in the absence of mere happiness. Only a few weeks ago, we were watching The Lion King. And of course, we were listening to the song, The Circle of Life. She is a part of the great circle of life. We just didn't know we would lose her this soon. Aletheia has donated her corneas, and she is not done giving yet. We hope to have her ashes converted to diamonds and stones so that close family will be able to keep her close even if we are all far apart. Mary is going to have an Aletheia diamond ring. I will have a heart-shaped diamond locket. And cremation stones will also be made for other family members. This allows us to keep Aletheia close to our hearts no matter how far away she may seem.
Good afternoon. My name is Therese Quelly. Many of you don't know me, but my husband, my sister-in-law, and I come from Rochester, Minnesota, but we knew Mary growing up in Nebraska. So I want to read you something that Mary wrote. So when I say I and me, just pretend I'm Mary. This is an acronym that she wrote. With Aletheia's name, each letter will stand for a word and a little description of why Mary came up with that word for Aletheia. So A, absolutely, definitely expressive and opinionated. I wonder where she got that from. Although Aletheia Joy started off her life unable to speak for the first 4 years or express her thoughts or opinions, as you've heard, God eventually gave her a means of communication. Morse code. I was the only one who could communicate with her, which created an important and cherished bond between us. It meant that she could tell me anything she wanted, and we could sit and talk for hours about all kinds of things. I got to watch her thoughts develop and saw how she acquired language skills. Everything from learning that questions have a different word order than other sentences, to using different tenses, to English's crazy spelling. I got to see her amazement at the world around her, beginning with the fact that when you turn a plastic bag upside down, what's inside will fall out. To the fact that scientifically, light behaves both as particles and waves. That concept I taught her in one of our science lessons. It fascinated her so much that she decided she wanted to grow up to become a physicist on the International Space Station, studying light. And I got to help her understand many more challenging things, again on a wide spectrum, from why it doesn't have to be upsetting, and is actually really neat, that a word can have 3 A's in it that all sound different, to why another driver unfairly yelled at Daddy, to seeing him reach into the back seat to lift her head up when it fell and she wasn't able to lift it, to becoming okay with the idea of leaving Grandma to move to a new state, to understanding that she had permission to go to her final home, and knowing that she had fought the good fight and finished the race. There's so much more I could say, but as John says, I suppose the whole world could not contain the thoughts I have to share about my Aletheia sweetheart. Elle, Larry, and our other stuffies. Many will know about her dear friend Larry, the axolotl. My mom picked her up in a gift shop in Oklahoma. And the smiling pink stuffed salamander was a source of unending hours of inside jokes, adventures, and even worry. The worry was on Mommy and Daddy's part because he would sometimes temporarily get lost. But we told Aletheia he'd gone on a secret mission, like Perry the platypus in the Phineas and Ferb cartoons. Perry is a secret agent living undercover with a family as pets. But He regularly saves the tri-state area from the inept, evil nemesis. In the meantime, the boys at home notice he's gone and ask, "Where's Perry?" And he comes back, and they always say, "Oh, there you are, Perry." So when we'd say, "Where's Larry?" when he got lost, we'd always make sure to say, "Oh, there you are, Larry." When he popped up again, under the bed or wherever, he's always got a hug, a beautiful smile, and some very cute laughter. She loved Larry, and because axolotls are an endangered species in the wild, she told me she wanted to protect him. So he took him everywhere she went. He accompanied her to the store, to church, to the hospital, all over. And everybody knew him. He was so famous in Aletheia circles that the nurses would write, "Aletheia and Larry's room," on the whiteboard when she'd be admitted. When she knew she was going away, Aletheia told me, "Take care of Larry and my other stuffies." So even though it seemed to make sense to put him in with her, since they were inseparable in life, we're keeping him with us and taking care of him just as she wanted. For the time being, at least, we're also taking him everywhere we go. And it's like still having a tiny piece of our Aletheia left in our day, even though everything else is changing. E is for excellent questions. Aletheia always asks excellent questions that tended to surprise me in their depth. So I'd usually have to stop and think a moment before answering. I was so impressed by her questions and frequently told her that that was a good question while I was giving myself a moment to think. To the point that she started saying, "Good question," to me too, when I asked her questions she had to think about. I only wish there had been more time and that we could have one of our in-depth conversations about what she was going through at the end. I'm sure she had many questions in the days before she passed, but it would have been too difficult for her to breathe and converse with me. So I'm thankful they managed her care the way they did. T, theological understanding beyond her years. My thoughtful girl was really a very deep thinker. The first Christmas after she learned to talk at 4 years old, she asked me one of her deep questions. In the course of the conversation, she not only stopped believing in Santa Claus, but also questioned whether God was real, since she couldn't see him either. For 36 hours or so, she considered herself an atheist. But then, when I read the first of, I think, 30-some arguments for the existence of God to her off a seminary website that I found, she said that it did make sense and that Santa was quite different. And when I asked her if she wanted me to continue reading the next argument for his existence, she said, "Why?" Her faith was so innocent and simple. All she needed was to be shown that it was true. She didn't need a mountain of evidence. At age 9, she was given a telescope by a neighbor, who then later passed away. His name was Chuck, and she was devastated and confused by the fact that he was no longer there. After she asked another one of her excellent questions, I compared leaving this world to being like a butterfly on a 2D surface that doesn't realize there's a 3D world out there. Aletheia was all about science and math. So most of the ways that I helped her through her emotional struggles usually involved these subjects. I explained that although the butterfly could travel up, down, left, and right on this surface, like on a window, it didn't know it could take off and fly away from it. I came back to this example last Thursday, the day she left us, and told her that sometimes, like in her case at the moment, the butterfly's window can get very dirty or broken, and then it can be hard to take off from. By this, I was referring to the experiences she had on Tuesday when she went into respiratory arrest and her heart stopped. They did 2 minutes of chest compressions and were able to get it started again, but the experience of all that must have been terrifying, and she was not able to breathe. I reassured her that now we were doing everything we could to smooth out the glass of her window, and it'd be much easier to take off now. I told her that she had done such a good job, and that I knew she always tried her hardest to do the right thing and do her best, and that she needed to understand that her best now could be letting go and enjoying the rest that God offered her. As I said, they're keeping her fairly sedated at the end, so I wasn't even sure she's aware of what I was telling her. But when I asked her if she understood, she touched me with her nose firmly enough that there was no question it was intentional. She said yes, and about 5 hours later, she was gone. H is for health. When it was clear the time had come, I lay in the bed next to her, holding her in my arms, and softly whispered to her all the things she no longer has to worry about or struggle with. Now she doesn't have to fight her muscle tone that caused her such pain. She doesn't have to worry about not being able to breathe easily anymore. She has no more acid reflux. She's been released from the confines of her body that prevented her from moving as she wanted. She has no more seizures. Her beautiful little voice is no longer silenced by the results of a grade 4 brain bleed that kept her from learning to speak out loud. And there are so many more things I mentioned. Seems like there are about 15 of them. I don't want to mention them all here, but I do want to say that I'm so very thankful she's free at last. E is for empathy. Just like I did my best to put myself in her shoes and understand what she was going through in her situation, that was so different physically than mine, she was so very empathetic to others. She loved The Wizard of Oz and wanted to watch the Wicked movies when they came out. In the first movies, it shows one of the monkeys sprouting wings, which was very painful for him. All the flying monkeys are then incited to capture Elphaba. I'm sorry if I said that wrong, I'm not familiar with the movies. And there's a scene with rather scary music where the monkeys are trying to grab her through the windows she's running past. I paused the movie at this moment to make sure she wasn't afraid, and I asked her what she was feeling. There's nothing about fear in her response. She only said, "Poor monkeys." I'm so thankful that Aletheia Joy no longer needs to worry about the suffering of others. And I'm so thankful that I no longer need to see her suffering myself. I, international communicator. Growing up in Europe, I became multilingual. I moved to the States, to a place where practically no one spoke another language, and at the time, spurred me on to study as many as possible. Several years ago, I told Aletheia I had studied 15 languages, and when I asked her later how many languages she wanted to learn, she said 15, with no idea that was pretty unusual. I love the belief she had in herself. Sadly, she never got a chance to study quite that many, but she did learn English, French, German, Spanish, Russian, Latin, Greek, Esperanto, and bits of Osage. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with a lot of these languages. I apologize. Biblical Hebrew, Zulu, and Japanese. We'd pick a language of the day and spend as much of that day as possible conversing in that language as we talked to each other. Then switch to another one the next day. Her favorite movie was Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because it's an allegory for the death and resurrection of Jesus. And she loved to learn new vocabularies, words in her language by watching it over and over again. She also absolutely loved looking at my Greek version of the New Testament and comparing it to the English version, reasoning out which word meant what. She did this with me in the Zulu Bible too. I was so missed my little linguist. There's no one else like her who I could have conversations with in so many languages. And finally, A is for adventure. One of Aletheia's favorite things to do was to go on adventures. Usually these just consisted of getting in the van and going somewhere, anywhere. If the radio was on and she was out and about, it was an adventure. Larry was tucked in by her side, and they got to experience the world together. Anytime we asked her if she wanted to go on an adventure, a huge grin would travel across her face and end up into her eyes. Now she has the opportunity to experience the greatest adventure of all. Enjoy it, sweet girl. We love you.
Go ahead and turn to the second page to Count Your Blessings, 384. Let's stand, if you can, for this song. When upon life's billows you are tempest tossed, when you are discouraged thinking all is lost, count your many blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. Are you ever burdened with a load of care? Does the cross seem heavy you are called to bear? Count your many blessings, every doubt will fly, and you will be singing as the days go by. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend. Help and comfort give you to your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by your many blessings, see what God hath done. And go ahead and sit down. Randy Givens, Aletheia's grandfather, wasn't able to be here today, so he made a video that we're going to be showing up on the screen there where he can share his things.
Okay, my name is Rich Gould. I am one of the grandpas. And Brian asked me to prepare a little something. I don't have a whole lot. It'll be short, but at least it's some experiences that I've had with Aletheia, which I know means truth. Anyhow, it's entitled Grandpa's Notes. I should put my glasses on, though, to be able to see it. What do you think? A few years ago, Brian and family had a goal of moving to Duluth to be close to his 3 siblings and myself. I thought it was a good idea, and they stayed with me for months while they're looking for a home. It was then that I got to know Aletheia and her daily adventures, as Brian would call them, which could be anything. It could be trying to get to the van from my house, which means you had to go out the front door, down a ramp, and through the whole backyard, which we snow blowed. And the thing that I noticed about that was Aletheia enjoyed the heck out of that. What I mean is, it was a bumpy ride through the backyard. And she was back there smiling away, and he's pushing like crazy. But yeah, you see, to other people that might be some kind of a chore, but she thought it was a wild ride. And so I just thought that was terrific about her attitude about all that. She never had a complaint and always loved to smile and laugh. She was constantly smiling and laughing, and I didn't understand that either. I mean, you can't be smiling all the time, can you? But she did. She just kind of tried to enjoy whatever it was that was going on. She craved a lot of attention, and she got it. You know what I mean? If it wasn't me, it was my daughter Heather playing with dolls and doing this and that, or Kim looking on the computer and doing some other stuff. One of my favorite things was watching some of the cartoons that appealed to her, like Sophia the First. You know who that is? This is this young girl who grew up in a town and was adopted by the king and queen, and all of a sudden became a princess. And she had to deal with the other princesses, and they had many adventures together, and pretty much Sophia the First straightened them out about appropriate behavior or how to treat somebody or whatever it was. And I just saw how she paid attention to that so closely. And I would ask her questions. I would say, "Wow, was that a good thing she did with the other princess?" And she'd smile and go like this. She understood good behavior and bad behavior, and she enjoyed those shows that showed how to behave and treat people right. So I just thought that was tremendous that she had that kind of intuitiveness and faith. Anyway, I was amazed how Brian could encourage her happiness and focus on new experiences. I'll tell you what, when Brian got off work and came out of the room and she heard his voice, it was all over. You know, she has a special bond with her father, incredibly special. And he's a major influence in how she viewed the world. Always positively, always with faith, always doing the right thing, and with compassion and understanding. She had all of that, and I didn't think that this little girl could have all of that stuff already, but she certainly did. Then we get to my nervousness about being taken care of her. I mean, when you've got to figure out this liquid food and get it just right and put it in a syringe and stick it through a tube and all that, I was terrified that I would do it wrong, or I'd hook the thing and spill it all over her or whatever it was. But she always, and she picked up on that. She picked up on how nervous I was to care for her and to do those things. But she just kind of smiled at me reassuringly. I knew what she was saying. She's saying, go ahead, Grandpa. You got this. And I overcame that stuff and just really, really enjoyed doing the things that needed to be done for her. I'll never forget her ability to endure pain and celebrate anyway with everyone who was around. It didn't matter who was there. And that takes a special talent and faith. My daughters, Heather and Kim, loved being with her too, and realized how the simplest things gave her so much joy. Things that we would take for granted. Unbelievable. Brian and Mary, of course, did the most important caregiving. And I'm just here to tell you that not enough can be said about the personal sacrifices and love that resulted in Aletheia's rewarding life, and it was rewarding the whole time. Last thing I want to say is that everyone who came next to her was enriched by being in her presence. That's my little skit.
Okay. All right, I get Larry. All right, I'm Heather, or Auntie Heather, for Aletheia Joy. I got to get a special bond with her. Oh, thank you. More when, just like my dad when she was moving up here. I got to see her before that, but we got our bond more when she was up here. And like my dad said, you know, when she got up here, we got to be privileged with spending a lot of time with her. So, let me see, I started saying it before. Okay. So yeah, Kim and I, we kind of teamed up on that as I couldn't lift her. So, you know, for caregiving and stuff, but I loved hanging out with Aletheia Joy. So we teamed up and we hung out with her, and it was a privilege. We enjoyed hanging out with Aletheia Joy. And when I think about Aletheia Joy and what I could write and say about her, there's just so many things. So I just didn't know what to say. So I'm just going to tell you about a couple of memories that I have, because there's just too many. And one of them is because of her, you know, not being able to speak and stuff, she does the yes and no with us too, but sometimes she doesn't do it. And it's, I think, just sometimes she just gets a little shy. But she had a special one with me. And so she loved to wiggle out of her blankets. We had her on my dad's floor because she didn't have a bed that she laid on there. And so we put a bunch of blankets and stuff on the floor, and she would wiggle off of that and off of the pillow. And I'd go, Aletheia, are you going somewhere? Do you have places to be? And she would laugh and she'd smile, and she'd do it over and over again just like it was the first time. She'd do that all day long. And let's see. Oh, and another time, we put shows on TV for her. Sophia the First was one, and she had a couple other favorites that we put on for her. And then on my computer, I liked watching Korean shows. And obviously, we know that she loves languages and stuff, but at the time I wasn't thinking about that. I was just thinking about having her put on her show. And I had started a Korean show on my computer, and I looked over at her, and she was smiling. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, Aletheia, would you like to learn some Korean with me? Her face got so big. I was like, okay. Now, don't make any mistakes. I am not fluent by any means in Korean, and I'm learning it myself, but I, taught her a couple of things. So I guess she knows more than what was listed. She knows a little bit of Korean as well. So we did do that. Also, my son Jordan wanted to share a memory with you. Recently, we went to Walmart, and when we got there, Jordan immediately takes off down the hall, and then I was in one of those wheelie things, so I'm walking with my cane. So I yelled to him, I'm like, stop right there, mister. We are not here for toys. We are here for food. And he goes, "But Mom," and he holds up this big axolotl. It looks like a huge, massive Larry. I mean, massive. And I was like, I'm like, okay, we have to get that for Aletheia Joy. And he's like, we have to bring it to her right now. Which was good timing because they were just getting out of the hospital at the time. So we finished our shopping and we brought it to her. And let me tell you, the look on her face when she saw that thing, oh my God, it was great. And I heard that, she actually gave it the name Larry the Giant. And I heard that Larry the Giant got to go to Cincinnati. So what I did when we came from Walmart, we strapped him in the back seat with a seatbelt and took a picture and sent it to Brian. They did the same thing when going to Cincinnati, so that's so cool. Larry the Giant got to go to seatbelt. Anyways, yeah, I guess I just wanted to say that everybody knows how kind and gentle-hearted that she is and how much she cares about others. And if you give her a plushie, you know that she's gonna name it your name. She does that a lot. Like Jordan gave her a plushie and she said, "I'm gonna name it Jordan," and I gave her another one and she named it Heather. So there's a good chance that she would give it your name. And you know what? How smart that is? You're always gonna remember who gave it to you. So that's just a couple that I have. Oh, you want me to?
Hi, I'm Kim Wagner. I am also an aunt to Aletheia, and my husband Matt and I have 3 kids and 1 grandchild. Aletheia Joy had a bright smile and a kind heart that touched everyone around her. Being around her reminded us of the beauty of innocence, laughter, and the simple joy of being together as a family. I have many fond memories when our family would go out to restaurants together or celebrate one of our family members' birthdays. That's my grandchild. Before Brian and Mary moved to Duluth, they would occasionally make visits. Brian had to often work on these trips, so my sister Heather and I would take turns watching over Aletheia Joy. I would watch YouTube videos about trip adventures and sometimes dog grooming or hair cutting. And Aletheia would smile big as I told her all about them. She loved learning about new things. I also cut her hair and made it the official Aletheia pixie cut. One time, Aletheia and Brian got to join us in our big RV, and we had fun talking about all the adventures we could go on. When the time had come recently to visit her in the hospital for likely the last time, I was talking to Brian on the phone and said, "Well, Matt's at work, so I'll just take the bus down to the hospital." Well, the funny thing is we call the RV the bus. So So for a second, he pictured me driving the huge 34-foot RV down to the hospital and pulling up to the valet parking. I laughed at the thought and joked along, "Yeah, come on down, Aletheia. Let's go on one last adventure." In this hard time of sorrow, we hold on to our promise the promise in 1 Thessalonians that one day we will be together again and with the Lord forever. Because of that hope, we trust that this goodbye is not the end. So instead of saying goodbye, we say, "See you later," because we know we will meet again one day in heaven.
I didn't get to see many of those adventures, but I did hear about Larry the Giant. I think the day that he got delivered, I heard many of the adventures of Aletheia through conversations with Mary over the years. Mary and I have known each other. We don't know how many years. We don't know how we met. I remember learning that Mary was pregnant and how much joy Mary and Brian had, and how much joy Aletheia brought them and all of us. I only got to meet her twice. Once, Mary and Brian and Aletheia were driving through Omaha, and they were going to stop and spend the night at my house. But Brian's allergic to dogs. And it was too much. He couldn't breathe. And Aletheia got so mad at my dog for making Daddy not breathe. And she was so disappointed that she couldn't stay. And I remember Mary trying to tell her it wasn't the dog's fault. And she wouldn't believe it. The second time was just a few months ago. I came up in late August. Got to spend the afternoon with family. And Mary and I stopped at Target and picked up smoothies and some fruit. And Aletheia had never had cherries. And so we made some cherries, or cut up some cherries to put in her smoothie. I don't know if she liked it. Did she like it? Awesome. And it was the best conversation because, like you know, she asked so many questions. And I don't even remember what we talked about. I think it started with languages, and how did I know that you had a different way of communicating, and why did I know? And then all of these other, like, what am I interested in, and what animals do I like, and what does my kid do, and everything, and when am I coming back? And I'm so sorry, sweetheart, that I didn't get to see you again. But you guys were in my thoughts, not knowing what was going on this past couple of weeks. Every day, these past 2 weeks. Even from a distance, her smile was infectious. And it will be for as long as we remember her, until we see her again.
Hello, I'm Brent, Brian's brother. I'll be real brief. I know that it's been a struggle sometimes getting together. I work a lot, and so it's always a struggle to try and get together to do family things. I miss out on a lot. The family misses out on some stuff too. And so when I get the opportunity to go to family functions and gaming nights and doing holiday parties and stuff, it's always been a joy to spend time with her and get to know her and do more stuff with her. I know that it's hard sometimes or where our house is and how our driveway is set up. It's pretty hard for them to come over and get the wheelchair out and everything. And we have those types of issues. I just wanted to share the thought that I have with being a pleasure to know her. And the first time we've seen her was when she was a baby, and then there was some time when it was way before they moved up to town. And then her smile and the joy that we got to see and enjoy just spending time with her. And then just, she'll be forever missed, but she will never be forgotten. And I just want to share that. Thank you.
I'm going to try to do this without crying, if you can hear me. Okay. So some of you may or may not know me, but my name is Mandy Stokes. Mary and I have been friends for a really long time. We met each other at my parents' house for a youth rally. I found out recently that I think I might have been one of the first people she saw when she came back to the States, so I thought that was really cool. And we had the privilege of being able to be college roommates. We got married the same year. We had our daughters the same month and the same year. I got to meet her husband, Brian, through York College when we all went together. I got to meet Aletheia in 2016 when they came to visit us when we used to live in Minnesota. And I was so excited to hear, and I remember reading messages and counting down the days when they were going to be moving here. I was so excited that Mary was going to be here and I was going to have a piece of Nebraska home here with us. And when they were here, I got to know Aletheia so much more. She loved snails, and we had some books in the library that I work at a school that had a little story about snails, so I would bring books over about snails. She loved astronomy, and I was so glad that my daughter Naomi and her could share that interest of astronomy and telescopes and stars and all of those things. My daughter Naomi actually helped me with this part. She wanted to say that Aletheia was always sweet and caring and loving, and even through the hard times, she always held a smile anytime. I know Aletheia wanted to be an astronaut. That was something she always talked about. I thought it was so cool that she's in her suit. So I wanted to quote from Wicked. That was one of my favorite plays and movies, that she can now do that because she's defying gravity. And to end, I want to also quote and say that by knowing Aletheia, I hope we all have been changed for good.
My name is Corey Johnson. I've known Mary since 1999. We met at York College. We became best friends. I didn't know Aletheia very well, but I know she was such a joy to be around. My daughter, speaking of her desire to learn, my daughter got to read to her one time. And the very first thing she said when we heard about Aletheia's passing was, "I got to read to her." And then she started crying and said it was just too early. But as people have said, she's in a place where she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. She's in a place where there's no more tears, no more pain, no more sorrow. She's in a place where all the former things have passed away. Now, I was only supposed to get up here and sing this song, but the song that I'm about to sing and that we're going to sing It's called Friends. And if I had the time, I would read the words to you. Because as we sing this song, listen to the words. It teaches a message that is just so rich. And so if you have your papers, it's the last song on the of the 3 songs. Let's sing both verses. Packing up the dreams God's planted in the fertile soul of you. Can't believe the hopes He's granted. Means a chapter in your life is through. But we'll keep you close as always. It won't even seem you've gone, 'cause our hearts in big and small ways will keep the love that keeps us strong. And friends are friends forever if the Lord's the Lord of them. And friends will not say never, 'cause the welcome will not end. Though it's hard to let you go, into the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to live as friends, with the faith and love God's given, springing from the hope we know. We will pray the joy you live in means is show, but we'll keep you close as always. It won't even seem you've gone, 'cause our hearts in big and small ways will keep the love that keeps us strong. And friends are friends forever if the Lord's the Lord of them. And a friend will not say never, 'cause the welcome will not end. And it's hard to let you go, into the Father's hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to live as friends. Aletheia joy is in the hands of the Father.
Dear God and Father, come before you this morning this time of grief. Lord, we ask you to be with Mary and Brian. Give them the strength as you always do. Lord, we ask you to be with all of us that we can be the shoulder for them to cry on. Lord, we know that Aletheia is with you now. A place that we all look forward to being one day in your presence. Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you give us while we're in this world. We ask you to be with us now and always. Lord, we ask you to guide us while we're on this world, that we can be the light in this world to guide others to you. Through your son's name we pray. Amen.
Okay, guys, can you hear me on the live stream?
There's a minute lag, so
Yeah.
if they do hear you, it'll take a minute.
Yeah. The Aletheanator.
I gotta check on that one.
Yeah, I know it has a delay.
Here's a bank of cards that people left.
Oh, good.
The extra memorial folders.
Uh-huh.
There's some boxes of thank you cards.
Okay.
And the guest book that everyone signed.
Perfect.
So I'll give you that.
Great, thank you.
And then, is it okay if she's cremated in her?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's
good.
the plan.
That's what, just want to make sure.
Yes,
So, okay.
yes, yes. It's all part of it.
Good.
Yeah.
They took the plant that was on the. I asked what
So I
happened
hope
to
you
it.
guys were able to hear on the live stream.
So I'm glad they didn't.
And even if it didn't come out clearly, we're going to try to take the recording on the computer and upload it too. So thank you guys so much. I know a lot of you couldn't come here and be here with us, but we're still so grateful for you guys.